Good morning. Sean here, Mountains Garage. If you go to my video playlist on YouTube, I have the videos separated thanks to an excellent request. When I finally get enough videos to even have playlists, had several suggestions by viewers to put them in playlists so they're easier to find. So under Turbo 400, you'll find, I don't know how many videos of different sections of the transmission. I did a short video, 6 minutes or so, on an Ultra Bell install. Today I was doing another one because of another installation that went wrong. I'm having to correct that. And it seemed like an excellent time to hit the highs and lows, if you will. Literally, highs and lows. I'm still covered in aluminum grinding dust. Side note on that, I'm looking at the size of particulate in the pile on the floor that I've swept up 3 or 4 times, and I should have been wearing a mask. I did have eye protection and hearing protection, but not wearing a mask was kind of dumb. So here are a few pointers to once again installing an Ultra Bell and some other case prep tips. If I had a blooper segment, I've tried to shoot this part of the video. This will be my 7th or 8th attempt. And I had it nailed when my son called me on the walkie-talkies we have to ask me a question about breakfast. Oh well, here we go again. First step was we have to get the old Bellhousing off. I've seen people do this with an assembled transmission. Good luck. I'm not going to do that. There's way too much material being removed and flying around to have any success with that. So that's not my bag. If it's yours, go for it, but I don't recommend it. I need to be able to mark the case with a Sharpie, and I can't mark grease and oil. So I have stripped the case 100% because I'm rebuilding it. I have scraped and washed it one time, and it's relatively clean and will accept some marking. So my goal in the end is to cut the case horizontal with this factory pump opening. Not alter this pump opening one bit, with the exception of these 3 lugs that stick up. They're triangulated around the opening. These need to be brought down to this level, or failure will result, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to take my Sharpie, and a lot of people, we're going to cover this a couple times in this video, get real excited about how tight they can make this gap to the Ultra Bell. I don't care about that. I want it to be a nice even cut, so when you look at it, it's not gross, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that. But I need to see this gap. I need to see the pump sitting in here, the Ultra Bell on top. I'm going to be inside with a flashlight, and I don't want to see daylight coming out around here. And I can't do that if this cosmetic, what becomes a cosmetic piece of aluminum, is blocking my view. So I'm going to go ahead and mark around here. I actually angle down a little bit because I don't mind that I'm going to have a 8 to 3/16 gap all the way around. But in the end, I know the Ultra Bell is going to sit against the pump 100%. I also take a straight edge. I'm going to mark all the way across. And this is where I start my cut. I will come down through with the blade starting right here. I had the transmission laying on its back on the bench, and once I get through here carefully, it's easy to watch my blade, and I can come around and I try to meet in the middle, relatively even. Same story here. You're going to cut, and when you cut this, you're going to create this weird little piece here. We're going to go ahead and cut that off too. We'll have to make a cut this way, but otherwise you got this weird tab sticking out that you don't need. And the majority of the difficulty and failure, I believe, is what happens down here, because this will come down. The pan rail is out further than the pump opening, and this is going to be curved like a ski slope, or ski jump, I guess. And all of this lug needs to go, and things get really tight and dark down here. So that's why I'm inside with a flashlight, making sure I get clearance here and here. Today I am cutting off a Oldsmobile Pontiac Buick Cadillac. I believe I had already ran the code on this. It was a 79 Pontiac Turbo 400. And some people get upset that I'm ruining a Pontiac Bellhousing. Well, actually, the Ultra Bell has both bolt patterns, Chevrolet and all the other GM brands. So I just made a universal transmission. And of course it's stronger and it's already been done. I'm doing this for a customer, it's not mine. So as I've stated before, the other brands other than the Chevy transmissions are the ones I look for. Maybe I shouldn't tell you that because you'll go buy them all. I'm joking. There's plenty to go around, and when there isn't, we'll do something different. So this is after my rough cut. Put her over here, and you'll see what I mean. I had to come down through, straighten out, and go around, and I met in the middle. Not perfect, but hey, I leave enough to grind. And other than breaking through here, this is the easiest part. I clamp the Bellhousing down to the bench so there's not a lot of vibration. I'm using my cordless hacksaw, Milwaukee M18. The only two tools, or three tools, I'm using a Sharpie. I'm using my M18 Sawzall, like I just mentioned, and my M18 cordless grinder with a flat disc. That's all I need. I have a mill, and if I was fancy, I could set it up in there, but I think I would spend a lot of time removing it off and on the mill table and trying it on for size. So whatever method you develop, if you're only doing one, it really doesn't matter. I'm doing more than one, so, but not enough to set up a jig. A lot of people have them all jigged up and they can really knock them out. Me, I'm just going to be happy to cut one off every now and then and not make a mess. If you look closely, you can still see some of my Sharpie mark. I am actually below the original pump opening. This comes up and makes a curve here. You have to take a little bit of the pan rail because it gets really tight down here. But important thing is I'm even all the way around. And I can see this opening like I mentioned. Let's try the parts on and see what it looks like. But first, let's see what happens if you don't get all these lugs, all of the 3 lugs off here. Once again, I'm not trashing anybody. I don't know who did this. I'm just trying to help out anybody that's going to do one in the future. In this case, they took a lot over here. Still left some of that weird thing I'm talking about, but they got pretty generous over here, but it kind of shrunk up where the pan gasket would sit too much, in my opinion. But that's the least of their worries. They did not get all the lug off there. So I assume there was some interference there. They went way heavy off the back when they were cutting, left way too much material there. And here's the trouble spot. Look at that. They stripped out pump bolts, went and got longer bolts. My first clue there was something wrong here is 6 of the bolts were down, recessed in the ultra bell like they're supposed to. 2 of them had washers stacked under them and the bolts were longer. And when I took it apart, well, when I pulled the pan off, there was pieces of the case laying in there. And now, in theory, you could fix this, but you have compound sealing surfaces. It's just not worth it in this case. Now, the problem, and I might as well hit it right now, this was a nice 8-bolt case. An ultra belt has 8 bolts attaching it. Ultimately, you use all 8. But in these 2 cases, I have 2 of these to do this week. The best I'm going to do is 7. Most transmissions have a bulge over here. Most of them are threaded. Some aren't. In this case, the case that I'm using, this Pontiac case, most Pontiacs, and there's some transmission experts that will argue that they're all 8-bolt. This is a 7-bolt. There's no 8th bolt over here. At least the 8th bolt is kind of redundant to this one. I mean, they're only 1.5 inches apart, if that. I'm going to run this as 7 bolts. Many people run them with 6. And that's probably okay too. This is a low horsepower unit, so let the power level be your guide, I guess. So the world is running out of 8-bolt cases, and most of them can be made to be 7. There's a few more details to cover doing that, but in this case, my hole was threaded, and it's going to be okay. The transmission came to me, like I mentioned, it's an 8-bolt case with an 8-bolt pump. I can't put the 8-bolt pump, at least the front cover, into a 7-bolt case because I'm going to have one hole wide open into the case. That's not going to work. So I had a 6-bolt pump laying around, which most of them, and this is a good example, all 8 bolts are drilled on the back section. So all I had to do in this case, I didn't drill the 8th one over here, but I drilled the 7th one up here. The correct drill size is 11/32. That's 2 full sizes over the 5/16 bolt that's going in there. My best advice, bolt the pump together like you're gonna rebuild it. So you've aligned the pump halves, you got all 5 bolts in the back holding the 2 together. From the back side, so I'm working upside down from the way I'm showing you, I used a transfer punch, and then with the halves bolted together, I set this on my drill press and drilled up through the back 11/30. Actually, I drilled 1/8 inch first, eyeballed it, make sure it was perfectly centered, and then went ahead and finished it with 11/32. So my pump has been modified. I don't have a wide open hole into the case that I would have had with the 8-bolt case. And let's stack it up. All stacked up, you can see how tight it gets to the pan rail. I left as much as this as possible because I want my gasket surface to seal. That is not my work. It's all full of oil and grease. That's something that was already there. Like I say, my gap is even, and I can see in that there's no daylight. I've had a flashlight in there. The Ultra Bell 100% sits on the front pump, and that's what's important. Having this closer to here is not important to me. It's even, it's straight, it looks fine. When you paint it all up, you won't even notice. But it gets super tight in here. So I spend a lot of time with the flashlight to make sure I got room. Just spend a lot of time going around inside out. One little spot can cause trouble. When I'm all done, I'll fill this unused hole with probably clear silicone just to keep stuff from building up in it. Another mistake when I disassembled this transmission, there's O-ring grooves on the back side of this that go between the Ultra Bell and the front pump. They were missing. So I don't know if it ran like that or not, but you have to put the O-rings on the back side. The correct bolt is a 5/16 18 by 2 1/4 long grade 8 bolt. Your local hardware store probably has 2 and 2 1/2. The 2 1/4 in grade 8, a little bit scarce, locally for me anyway. This is the second one I need to tackle this week. I'm hoping for the extra bolt up here that I can add. It kind of looks like they cut this one with an axe. They left some of that. They cut the pan rail a lot. They left that weird thing sticking out pretty thick over here. I'm in hopes that I can make it look like something. This one's getting a Ford Bellhousing, which makes it the third Ford transmission, a Ford Turbo 400 I've built in a year or so. It's a trend. It's a good trend if you're a Ford guy. Well, this just in. My son's calling again. He really wants those pancakes. He's up early today. So I gotta go. But thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. We'll grind on something else next time. But don't be afraid. Go out there and tackle it. Whatever it is, just get after it.